Hello and welcome to Writing with Steve. We're on location again. This time we are in the village of Gatley in Cheshire. This is part of our series of videos dedicated to the writing process, where we take you from planning through writing to publishing. So in this video we're going to start at inspirations and ideas for your poems. And the best way really to explain it is to talk about my own experience, and that's why we've come to Gatley today, because Gatley involves the inspiration for one of my poems, which ended up in my anthology of poems, Blink. So I was sat in Coffee Fix, I was sat at a table drinking a coffee, and I was looking out of the window at this park, and what I could see was bunting. For those unfamiliar with bunting, they are those tiny pennant-like flags that people place up for fetes and events. These had been used in August. It was September now. It was a day very much like this, and what I could see was that they'd been left out in the weather. It was a listless day, no wind, and they looked sad, hanging down, they looked forlorn. So I just scribbled down my observations about what I could see in the park, the bunting in the Municipal park. Municipal just meaning a public park. Didn't think any more of it, didn't place any high concepts on it, just pure description. And I wasn't just limited to writing about that. I was observing other things from the window, other things in the cafe. And then when I got home and I was reviewing this and I was journal writing, it was the piece from my notebook that engaged me the most. And I thought, well, there's some material here. There's something that I could roll with, something I could riff with. I added to it, I enhanced it a little, I just started to hone it, and 3 or 4 edits later I had something that was more than work in progress. I had almost a finished poem, and that's what ended up in my anthology, The Bunting in the Municipal Park. The bunting threaded through the trees of the Municipal Park sag lower than the barren boughs castrated by the council cuts, pale and shredded triangles like jagged fins of jaded sharks on permanent exhibition in some small town aquatic prison. The bunting hangs condemned, swinging slowly in the listless day, some ragged and torn, all faded and worn. 3 months ago the carnival left town, yet who has the heart to tear them all down? And as you can see, it uses very simple words. There's nothing complicated in it. Perhaps municipal and bunting, but you know, it wouldn't take long just to look up those words. And what I hope you notice as well is that I don't really use any highfalutin words. I don't look at grand abstract concepts. I just use concrete images, concrete words. And what I hoped was that the poem would provide an opportunity for people to find their own meaning within it. Again, showing but not telling. It hardly rhymes, not that any poem has to rhyme, so it doesn't really follow a very strict rhyming scheme. I think one thing as a beginner, if you haven't written poetry before, I think one thing to bear in mind is don't waste your time working out what is a poem and what is and what isn't a poem and what one looks like. I would just say write down your observations in a notebook and then start expanding it. There are so many different forms of poems and there's no clear definition of what a poem is, so I just wouldn't waste my time getting hung up about things like that. And certainly as you read through this, there's all different forms and different types of poems, and I've certainly found when I'm writing my poems that they come in all shapes, sizes and length. So to recap, if you're new to poetry or you're revisiting poetry after a while, I would just say carry your notebook, keep it at hand at all times, write down your observations, what you see, use your 5 senses, get a complete picture of it, take it back with you, reflect on what you've written down. Does it engage you? Does it engage you enough to start editing it, honing it, crafting it into a poem? No need to signal a concept or some big idea behind it. No need to write high concept words and abstract nouns like love, justice, beauty, unless you want to, of course. So you don't have to really get strung up and get sidetracked by that. But of course, poems are very, very personal to you. So take whatever you feel comfortable writing in any approach. Just because you stick with concrete images and describe everyday events doesn't mean that your poem is somehow inferior. Some of the greatest poems ever written use that approach. In our next video, we will then take poetry writing one step further, and we'll be looking at some of the most popular forms of poems. And you may want to use those forms, or you may want to adapt some of those forms when you are finalising your poem. But believe me, your poem is as likely to stand on its own and stand alone without following any particular form. Some of the greatest poems in literature do not follow standard rules. Sometimes they may break them, sometimes they may bend them, but you don't have to religiously follow a poetic form. You have still written a fully functioning, fantastic poem. As you can see, poems come in all different shapes and sizes and forms. If you'd like to sample some more of my poems, go to Amazon Kindle. There are a couple of poems there on the sample of link that you can download or you can read on Amazon. There's a hard copy version of this book, and it's also available at all major bookshops in the USA and the UK. End of shameless plug. I hope you liked our video. Don't forget to subscribe, also hit the like button and ring the bell. Ding dong. Also, if you like writing poems and have some of your own tips, please share them with us in our comments box. Until next time, from Carol and me, write well.